Welcome to this very special episode where we host wonderful female leaders from the insurance industry to commemorate Women's Day. It is so good to have you here, Mina, Caroline, and Tanya. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
So can I just request you all to sort of, have a quick one-liner introductions of yourself. We'll start with you, Mina.
Sure. My name is Mina Sahib. I'm the Insurance Business Director here at XA Group. We are both Insurtech and hardware services and solutions for motor insurers in the region. For those in the insurance industry, they've known me for a while. I've been here working at various insurers for the last 10 years. But I started my career back in Canada, actually working for State Farm. I'm also the founder of the Women's Insurance Network, so this is a topic very close to my heart.
Very good.
I'm happy to be here today.
Great to have you. Caroline, maybe we can start with you next.
Good morning, I'm Caroline. I work at GIG Golf, a golf insurance group, previously AXA. Company was acquired around 2 years ago, but our business continues as before. I'm in charge of marketing and since 4 months, also in charge of human resources. So very happy to be invited on this occasion and take this opportunity.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Welcome. And last but not least, Tanya, can we have an intro from yourself, please?
Absolutely. My name is Tanja. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Democrats, and we are an Insurtech that specializes in helping insurers and insurance brokers digitize their workflows. And I'm super excited to be here today to commemorate women in insurance.
Awesome. Great to have you.
Perfect. So I'll just start off with a question for all the panelists and, just draw you in one by one. So this is what's inspired you to kind of pursue a career in the insurance industry? We are always curious to know from an FS Brew perspective. So maybe we'll start off with Tanya this time.
That's a great question. I guess you could say that I stumbled into the insurance industry. I was wrapping up my MBA in finance actually at Wharton in the US, and MetLife came to campus. They had just recently launched a new leadership development program. They actually went international overnight when they purchased the business from AIG called Alico, and they just didn't have the succession plan in hand in order to run those markets. So the opportunity was to be with MetLife for 5 years, rotate through different senior positions across the globe, and then kind of roll out and either run a function or a country. And I was very drawn to the acceleration of a career as well as a global career in itself. So at that time, insurance maybe mattered a little less, nor did I know much about it. But then once I got my hands on it, obviously things kind of started rolling from there. And I've been in the industry for more than a decade now. So I think once you're in, it's hard to get out. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Caroline, maybe next you.
Yes, so when I was studying, I think insurance was probably the last of my options. I just like Tanya, I stumbled in the insurance industry a bit by chance. It was like in an internship in the company that back then 20 years ago was called AXA in Belgium. And I never left, basically. I had the opportunity to work with great leaders. I had the opportunity to work in different continents. And I think the industry itself and the purpose of it has always kept me inspired. There's just still so much to do. There's so many customers to still be convinced about the importance of insurance. And that's part of the reason I sticked around.
For sure. Yeah, that's great. Mina?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, listening to Tanya and Caroline's stories, I don't know if anybody chooses to be in insurance, to be honest with you. I think we all stumble into it. I also graduated from university, political science. I wanted to be a civil servant in Canada. And it was just really, really tough to get in there. So I said, you know what, let me do insurance. I had an offer from State Farm. They were willing to train graduates at the time. And I joined State Farm, and I said to myself, I'll do this for a year and then I'll give the civil service exams another try next year. And I just ended up staying with them for almost 6 years in Canada. Started off in claims, started off in property, and then personal accident benefits. And then, you know, coming from a Middle Eastern heritage, I kind of wanted to try something different, which brought me here to the Gulf. So here I am.
Perfect. I think all three of you had some rather large international names, you know, as a starting point, right? All right, Vidya, your next question.
No, absolutely. No, so I think Anna mentioned, does anyone choose it? That we actually stumbled upon few actuaries who have chosen insurance as their, you know, choice of career. So there are some, you know, insurance geeks out there. But onto the really, you know, interesting topic that, you know, we set this whole panel up really is around the whole, you know, inclusion and gender diversity conversation that happens, that's happening quite rightfully so in our industry and in wider different sectors as well. Now, we wanted to reach out to the leaders like yourself to understand a bit more of the challenges that we have within, you know, within our industries. So tell us some of the challenges you have faced as a woman in a leadership position in the insurance industry. And potentially we will start off with Caroline, and then we can have the rest of you come in as well. So Caroline, if you can start off on the challenges you have faced.
Yeah, I think I can speak more about the challenges I had linked to my age rather than my gender. I think I was lucky enough to land in a company where gender was just never a topic. And you spoke about it, Ranjit. We all were, we entered into an insurance company, which was a big name, global perspective, where the topic of diversity was tackled quite early on. And we as female leaders actually had a lot of opportunities. However, I started at age 21. I was very ambitious. And I think I had more boundaries linked to my age and my kind of energy. And being credible at a certain age, maybe as a woman, but I think it was more linked to the fact that you're young and don't necessarily have the maturity required. So there I had more boundaries than really the gender. I think if you look at it from a geographic perspective, probably UAE, the markets we're in right now have probably been the most diverse I've ever worked in. I previously worked in Mexico, a bit more of a macho culture, I would say. So there were more challenges, but again, that was more linked to the culture rather than the industry. Here in the current circumstances, we have an executive committee that is completely balanced. So we have 50% men and 50% women. Our CFO is even a woman. We have our head of employee benefits who is a woman. So we really strive towards a good gender balance. And I've been fortunate to always be able to ride on that wave.
Perfect.
Wonderful, wonderful. Maybe we can ask, you know, like Mina as well. What are the challenges you have faced, maybe early on or even now?
Yeah, I think you know, I think the challenges increase as you go higher up the ladder. You know, I definitely experienced a lot of challenges. You know, you see. You know, when you're in a room, you're the only woman. Obviously, here in the Middle East, you see less women in our industry, especially in senior roles. And, you know, I've been very lucky to have some incredible mentors actually at the companies I've worked at who really kind of helped, you know, support me in these roles. But you're not necessarily going to get that kind of support from others in the room. And you see that a lot. You know, you see the challenges, you see, you know, people interrupting you when you want to speak or not even allowing you to speak, or maybe kind of dismissing what you're saying. You see that a lot. And I see it also happening to other women in, you know, in meetings and in certain, you know, business environments. So there are definitely a lot of challenges, but I think, you know, it's one of the reasons actually I started up this Women in Insurance Network is because, well, I can get into that a little bit later, but really it's about supporting each other in the spaces that you're at. So I think it becomes a little bit important to be a little bit stronger and not fear voicing your views or not fear kind of stepping up?
No, absolutely. And I think perceptively as well, as a woman, this industry is always seen as a boys' club, right? So it's always seen like, okay, the men's club, and it's the big boys have to make the decision, and so on and so forth. So very subtly, in a very biased manner, it's always portrayed as that, and it's very tough to always have to make your mark, which means you have to work 2 times, 3 times, 4 times more than your counterparts and things like that. So there's a lot of those challenges to navigate, and like you rightly said, Mina, maybe it's a lot more also of the cultural context that we are in the Middle East, and that adds on as a layer as well. Maybe Tanya, if there is anything that you want to add on to this.
I would definitely second everything that has already been said. There's definitely an issue in terms of just appreciating the diversity of thought that might come from a female perspective. It's still maybe seen as opposing or different rather than enriching in a certain way. I read this really staggering statistic that most women are 1.5 times more likely to leave a company because it doesn't provide the level of diversity, equality, and inclusion that they would like to see. So the numbers out there speak to this being a continuing issue, and that's obviously very disheartening to see.
True, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some very valid points. I mean, the next question is a bit, I want to add to that question a little bit because of what I've heard. Now, being sort of senior leaders in your respective organizations, you do have a certain vantage point to change some of these equations and those, sort of issues that you've kind of highlighted. Have you done some of sort of these actions to advance gender diversity, or do you feel that there are certain things which have to be done by the corporates that you work in terms of advancing gender diversity and inclusion in the workplace? So it's a bit of a broad question. Probably I'll start with Mina and go down to the rest of the panelists.
Yeah, I mean, I think, diversity and inclusion as a concept is relatively new for the Middle East. It's not something that you see even being discussed about. Companies that I've worked for over in Canada, we were discussing D&I, 15 years ago. So it's definitely something new to the region, but much needed. And because of that, you want to see any kind of if you want, grassroots developments or grassroots kind of organizing that takes places in these companies that are relevant here, and whether you're talking about your startup Insurtech or your multinational insurer, you want to always, as a leader who believes in diversity and inclusion for women, especially, want to participate and encourage the participation of women, because I was working at an insurer, and we did a women in leadership course. It was a LinkedIn course, actually, and the women that joined was staggering. I mean, we had a wonderful group of women employees at the company, and interestingly enough, they nominated me to lead the workshop, and I thought that was very interesting. The reason why they nominated me, they said to me, is because they felt I was more vocal than they were, which is probably true. But I recognize that actually some of these women were incredibly accomplished, incredibly competent, but it's also cultural, right? They don't want to be the visible ones in the office. They're okay to kind of come in, do exceptional work, and go home. And visibility was something we talked about a lot in these workshops. And you guys know this. I speak on technology events, on automotive events, and I've been in the industry for a while, and even within my workspace, I'm happy to be visible. I'm happy to be vocal, but this is also because culturally I grew up in the West, and that's much more accepted in those environments. So I think really it's up to a couple of leaders to really kind of help drive women's participation in whatever workshops, be it within the company or outside the company. And as I was saying a little earlier, it's one of the reasons why I started the Women in Insurance Network, because I wanted to give a space for women in an industry that is very male-centric and male-dominated, a space where they felt comfortable to come, network, and really learn from each other and build mentors within the industry itself. So even if you don't have mentors where you are, you can build those mentors outside your workplace as well.
Perfect. No, I think you mentioned a few strategies and actions that you've seen and you've personally driven. Caroline, maybe if you want to add on to a few things that you've seen or you've actually driven to advance gender diversity and inclusion in the workplace.
Yeah, again, my testimony comes from a company that's more Western. So I think we've been less exposed to the, let's say, the context, the cultural context. Our company has always really pushed to make sure that women get opportunities at all levels. What we're doing here in the organization is a big focus on flexibility. I think we have to acknowledge that because of the role that women have at home and their role as mothers, there are sometimes challenges when it comes to work-life balance, organization, and that should never be a reason not to get opportunities, because we know that women, even if they work at home after they've done their household duties, let's call it like that, they will double down on the work. So there is an opportunity, I think, for organizations to create that environment of flexibility for women, but also for men. This being said, I don't think it should only be focused on women, because if you look at the new generations, they require flexibility regardless of their gender.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think the whole concept of gender itself is going through a little bit of a question with the new generation. So yeah, absolutely. Tanya, any points to add on that, especially from a technology perspective? There's always this complaint that it's very there's a bro culture in the tech world, especially when I was in the US. I heard that. Is that the same in the Middle East as per your experience?
Absolutely. Unfortunately so, and maybe even more so than in the West. I'm actually very committed to supporting women in the workplace in general. And I think there's different ways that you can go about it. One is more formal and one is more informal. So from a formal perspective, as a manager, all things equal, I will always hire a woman, and I will really take my time to understand what drives her productivity and her motivation and what her strengths are. And I will give her opportunities that will make her shine. So if I work with someone who's very good at creating strategic projects, I will assign them strategic projects, and I will make sure that they present it to the whole company once they're done, so they can actually really share this knowledge and really show off in a way where they're best at. Informally, what I like to do is have conversations akin to this one with my female peers. Just ask them, how are you feeling as a woman? What is troubling you? How are the kids? Are there concerns that you might have that are specific to you being a woman in the workplace? Let's discuss it. Let's support each other. And let's just have that conversation open in a safe space with each other to really support one another.
Perfect.
Right. Wonderful. On to our next question, we'll all agree that, it takes some multiple, systems to make sure it is an equitable system. It is the wider organization, the cultural context, but also the self, the women herself. So what advice would you give to the other women aspiring to leadership roles in the insurance industry? Maybe we can start off with Caroline, and we can go on to the rest.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to get rid of your own boundaries. I think that's the typical hurdle that we have to overcome, which is our own biases and our own lack of self-confidence. And I think once you've realized that, and once you compare yourself with your male peers and you see that you're equal, you have to believe in yourself and take the risk and go for it. I second what I think Mina said about finding a good sponsor or a good mentor or a good promoter. I think that's critical. You do need to have people that believe in you, whether it's men or women, that can pull you up and give you that extra nudge when things are a bit tough.
True. True. And maybe Tanja, you want to add on to this?
I would just simply say that women should align themselves with other super women. At the end of the day, no one is going to be able to support you better than someone who walked a mile in your shoes. And the more women that support one another, the stronger the community becomes overall, and the higher the female corporate representation becomes as well. So I think we all have to play a role in shaping the future of this topic.
True. Mina?
I'm going to take that even a step further than what Tanja is saying. I'm going to ask the men to support the women, because while Tanja is completely right, women we're always in it together as sisters, but really it's the men on top that we want to start, and actually all of my mentors have been men. And they have been the ones that really believed in me and really helped kind of pull me into those big brother meetings, right? Where I was kind of sitting there, the only woman. But, and this is where I think it becomes important for men to really pull out their arm to help women get in there. In addition to that, I also think it's important for women to continue to upskill. Vidya, you were saying that sometimes we have to work a little harder, but sometimes I feel like women are working harder at the wrong things. We're always volunteering to do the administrative work, or we'll organize the, the Christmas lunch or the Eid Ramadan iftar, which is great. However, I also think we should be the ones to be volunteering for the interesting leadership projects and the new technology initiative taking place, or the new transformation initiative taking place, because that's where you will begin to learn skills, and you're building a meritocracy, right, where you're working. So people will start to not see you as women, but see you as an active participant in the changes happening in the company. And I mean, during COVID, I've been in insurance and in leadership for many years, but during COVID, I decided to do my PMP and do a mini master MBA in digital insurance. And these are skills that I'm able to keep leveraging, to keep myself as a competent participant in my role, in my job. So I think definitely you need to combine both. Yeah.
No, definitely. No, that sounds very, very practical thing to do. I think a lot of the times women have to come out of their shell. We immediately become our biggest devils and biggest villains, and you don't really need anybody outside as much. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a little bit of a step back ecosystem view now, and you, all of you are in senior roles at some firm or the other. Now, the excuse that we often hear from organizations, some of them, is that I'm not able to induct more women at the, let's say, junior level, therefore I don't have women at the senior level. Or the other is, at mid-management level, women drop out of the workforce for family reasons, and therefore I don't have too many women at the management level. Some of it is well-founded, some of it is not really. But what do we think all of us can do to ensure sort of this glass ceiling, that oft-quoted term, is broken, and we can have more women at the management level? So probably I'll start with Caroline and then go around to the rest. And this is not an easy question.
I'm not convinced I'm the right person to answer the question, because again, I've not personally experienced a glass ceiling. So I find it, again, probably linked to the company I worked in. We've worked for at least a decade so hard on convincing the organization that there was a place for women. There shouldn't be any bias. Yes, insurance is a bit more male skewed because of also the number of students. But then if the students in financial, for example, in financial studies and so on. But if you look at the end result today, we have, as I said, half of our executive committee are women, half are men. That's due to the efforts, many years of kind of getting the message across. On the other hand, I also think we have to be a bit careful, because then there comes this kind of adverse effect where men feel threatened by women, and this is where we kind of reach the boundaries of where it becomes unhealthy to push too much, right? So what I personally apply in, for example, the way we hire, the way we choose candidates, and the way we promote is the best person for the job. And of course, if we can, give an opportunity to women, we will do so. But we have to run a business. So at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we get the right people in the organization to drive forward. It entails diversity, and it entails diversity of opinions. But it has to stay, the balance has to stay healthy.
Perfect. Tanja or Mina, anybody wants to jump in? Say, Mina.
Well, actually, I'll touch on something Tanja said a little bit earlier, which was that you want to drive the participation of women, bring them in. Tanja was talking about showcasing her female employees' work once they're done, to other employees in the business, and that's really the best way to showcase your employees' works. Let them be more visible. Let the women, and I want to also, I have to recognize that I'm a privileged female in the Middle East because I'm British, and this is important to register that, right? Because there is a difference between being, European women and women of other nationalities here. It's important to talk about that because, and I always make it a focus to really highlight the work of women from other nationalities because they don't get the same privileges I do, right? I'm, Western educated, I have Western experience, I have different privileges than they do. So it's really important to be a little bit insistent. And I always tell the women that have reported to me in the past, apply for that job in the other department. I'll put in a good word for you. You have to just keep at it. And there's a lot of work you have to do to market or present yourself in a way that really kind of highlights your skills and your transferable skills, because women are really quite unique in, we're multitaskers. We really are brilliant at multitasking. And this is why, often women get caught up with the administrative work in any department they're in because they're good at it. But frankly, that should not be where we're cornered. So really it's just about, pulling people up and highlighting their work.
Yeah, and be consistent, be insistent and consistent at it. It's
be
not
consistent. Go after it. Don't be shy, and it does rub people the wrong way. Caroline kind of mentioned that, but I think it rubs people. I think it's important to rub people in the wrong way sometimes. I think you have to, in order to break those glass ceilings, you've got to kind of be, I've been in meetings before where kind of, people kind of look at me like, who is this, young woman kind of like telling us what to do. We've been doing this for 40 years, you know. But actually, what's interesting is they do take from what you say, and you know, you don't have to be liked 100% all the time. But if you showcase what your work, what your deliverables are, it will make an impact.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's important, you know, so of course it is the self that has to sort of put yourself out there, but also as an organization, I think it's important we have an environment that helps women thrive. Otherwise you are constantly, you know, trying to knock that glass and you're going to only bruise yourself consistently because, you know, the system is not enriching you to, you know, progress further. So I think Caroline mentioned as well, a lot of the things that are specific and unique to women, whether it's flexibility of work and, you know, the ability to, you know, go out there and put yourself out there, you know, the skills that's required. So I think there has to be a lot more tailor-made facilities from an organization perspective to nurture this streak, isn't it? Yeah, so maybe we can jump on to the next question, Ranjit. Yeah, onto the leadership style. So going on to the broader style, so you all of you are in a women in leadership position. We want to dig a little deeper about, you know, how you've gone about on different facets and how did you make it to where you are now. In terms of the insurance industry itself, how do you see this industry evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, and how are you personally preparing for those changes? Maybe we can start off with Caroline.
Yeah. I think the evolution I'm seeing. So first of all, there is. I'm not even going to mention the revolution that ChatGPT has generated. I'm going to more focus on the overall change in consumer behavior. I think our industry is one for up until Generation X, and everything that comes after, they're just not going to buy it anymore because their behavior is really changing. Their expectations are changing. They're not going to live the way we live. They're not going to own the way we own. They're not going to work the way we work. So this shift in way of looking at the world will have to will push the insurance industry forward. So this is one trend for sure. It will be protection on the go. It will not be buying your motor insurance. I'm quite convinced of that one. The other topic is data. We can speak about it for hours. Data is the core of this is the fuel of our industry, right? Without data, there is no way for us to do anything. I think our capacities and the work that our actuaries, data scientists are doing will probably be enhanced through AI. I think we're only at the starting point. So I think there is an amazing opportunity and revolution to be able to, you know, better offer consumers what they need when they need it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, this is the time of ChatGPT and all those kind of fancy things. Yeah, good point on AI. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe Mina, you want to chip in on this?
I think Caroline, you know, hit the two most important things that are happening today, right? And really, you know, to kind of summarize it, we're seeing this shift in technology. Insurers are a little bit slow to get on the bandwagon, but you know, this is really where you know, employees, both men and women, need to kind of make sure that they're prepared, because what'll happen is, you know, you're going to start to see the more progressive insurers who have adopted a lot of technology and you know, digital solutions start to become you know, stronger amongst their peers. So I really think it's up to employees to just make sure that they have the right skills. There's lots of, you know, you don't have to take a course. There's so much incredible reading, YouTube, LinkedIn. You know, there's incredible books out there that you can learn to at least understand it conceptually.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the biggest university out there, free almost, right? YouTube. So Tanja, we'll start off with you on this question. So some of the lessons that you've learned in your career in the industry, and insurance or otherwise, and how have they kind of shaped your leadership style?
That's a great question. I think I could talk about it for hours, but one thing that I would single out that's maybe not even gender related is just to remember that careers, especially nowadays, are super fluid. You never know where people might end up eventually. Someone that works for you could be the CEO of a company that you're interviewing for next. So my advice in general is just to treat everyone with kindness, respect, and professionalism, because you never know what the future will bring in this highly fluid labor market and the rise of lots of startups and technology companies.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe Caroline, want to add some things on the leadership style and some of the lessons you've learned from the few years.
Yeah. I think there's one key point which I will always stay true to, which is be authentic. And I think it's double important for women because as you grow, you tend to think that maybe you need to toughen up a bit and act a bit different. And this is something that I've always refused. I've had amazing female leaders that I really looked up to, but that I saw being unnecessarily tough and kind of put aside their personalities, and I always found that very sad. So I make it a point to be myself. There is only one version of me anywhere I am.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. We've seen Hillary Clinton wearing pantsuits, just to be perceived as tougher in that kind of an atmosphere. And I think we men are pretty guilty of forcing women into that corner. So I think there's a lot we need to learn from there. Mina, you want to add something on the leadership style and what you've learned?
So I think, managing many different levels of employees in the past, I think it's really important to empower people. You have to let them take the lead. And you also have to be the right role model for them, right? You have to be okay with getting your hands a little dirty as a leader and getting in there and doing, showing them how it's done. It makes no sense to sit back and just give them a list of tasks to do. You want to really kind of empower them to become the leaders after you're gone. And they, I think a lot of leaders, globally, I'm not just going to say in this region, are a little threatened to kind of give the keys of knowledge to their team or give them empower them a little bit. And I think one thing that I definitely see in this region is people have a lot of fear, right? There's a lot of fear to make a mistake. There's a lot of fear that they make a decision and then they're being held accountable for it. Let them make the mistake. They're never going to learn if they don't make a mistake. And one of my biggest lessons in my leadership roles is that sometimes I'm wrong. And, I have been corrected. I have been taught to do things a different way. There is never one way to do anything. So actually, that's something that has really nourished me as a person, is to listen to my team and to really allow them to become leaders of their own. That has been so empowering for some of especially the women, and not just the women, but even some of the men in my teams in the past. And I see them today in the roles that they're at. And, I think that it helps them build confidence, right? You want to build a confident team that will make decisions when you're not around, that you want them to do that. So I think that's really critical as well.
Yeah, some very good points there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we've come pretty much to the very last question of this episode. To summarize, what are the most exciting developments that you are looking forward to from insurance industry, and how are they important for the future of the industry? It'd be great to know your closing thoughts. We will start with potentially Tanja.
Absolutely. And some of them have already been mentioned. So there's 4 trends that I am particularly interested in, invested in myself in my role. Obviously, the first one is digitalization and technology. We all know that this is happening, but yes, the industry has been slow to really drive that tech adoption curve. although I read this interesting stat that 67% of insurers in the UAE want to partner with Insurtechs. So that gives me a lot of hope that there is a huge shift in the mindset now. The second thing is obviously data. This is what I am most passionate about. And again, we're not doing that great of a job actually leveraging it yet. There's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done before we fully can. But again, about $4 billion were invested in this space in 2021 by insurers. So if nothing else, the enthusiasm is there according to the numbers. Mm-hmm. The third piece is just the ecosystem. I think the insurance industry is learning from other industries that you kind of have to partner with the wider ecosystem and a lot of different players that are not even just insurance specific in order to really give that 360 value to the customer. And also in reality, you can't really do and build everything yourself in-house. You're going to have to partner in certain areas. In insurance, it can be as simple as partnering with IoT device providers in order to really understand your underwritten subjects a bit better, get the data, be able to reward them for healthy behaviors and so on. And then the fourth thing that I feel like the jury is still out on is future designs of insurance products and underwritten subjects. There's obviously a lot of buzz happening in terms of the technology industry outside of insurance as well, which with itself will bring in new subjects that we will have to underwrite and insure. So I'm thinking like, how do you underwrite and assign a premium amount to a 3D building that was printed somewhere in a massive machine, or non-fungible tokens and other virtual objects, or virtual identity? How do you insure people against identity loss? These are all things that are new and exciting and will really be driving innovation in that way in the years to come, in my opinion.
Exciting. Well, maybe we can have Caroline come in here.
What to add, Tanja? No, I think of course she ticked all the boxes. She summed it up brilliantly. I'll just compliment that again. I think it's gonna be interesting to see future generations' expectations, and I think the big challenge for us, as I said, I started in this industry 20 years ago trying to get consumers to like insurance. I think there will be a day where people actually see why it's important, but I think change is in us as well, in the insurance, and how do we make what we offer more relevant, more bespoke, more easy to access, and more transparent. And this trend I will continue to strive in this industry until it's done.
Brilliant. Brilliant. No?
Mina?
Sorry. Yeah, I think Tanja touched everything, all of the shifts that are happening today, and and I mean, within all those points that she raised, there are obviously a lot of kind of sub points that will also be a focus, right? I mean, why is data so important? To develop new products, to be able to underwrite differently, to be able to understand, claims loss ratios differently, right? I mean, we are in an industry that is sitting on so much data. And I guarantee you that 95% of the data that we sit on is not even used. And it's unfortunate because, the whole premise of underwriting, of actuarial science, is to use that data to help understand your risks better. So, I think we will also start to see a shift with a lot of insurers really look at, data cleaning organizations or data management vendors, really look to them for help, because it's something that they don't know what to do with all this data that they have. So, the first step they'll want to do is to make sense of it. So to clean it, to organize it, to set it up. And then you can build these amazing products that, Tanja's talking about, embedded products. You might want to look at partnering with a lot of online distributors on how you can start building products to strategize your growth as a business. So I think you will see that on a more UAE or Middle Eastern sphere. I think you will see, it'll be unfortunate and fortunate to some, but you will see the drowning out of the old school traditional insurers. I don't think they have a lot left in this market. And you're starting to see that with a lot of the mergers and acquisitions that have taken place in the market over the past couple of years. And really, this should really be the red flag for a lot of insurers that are not taking those steps, right? Or that are not complying to, the regulator is really trying to push insurers to start thinking about digitalization. So I think you'll see that shift as well. So this is why, I reiterated a lot in my answers today, the importance for employees to maintain their knowledge on what's happening in the digital economies, to make sure that whilst those guys might be drowned out, you don't, right? So.
Yeah, no, I think these are definitely exciting times with a lot of changes happening, both regulatorily and, societally as well. So yeah, some great points there. I think probably we can, it's a logical point to bring it to a closure. This was a great panel. I think I learned personally a lot from all of you. So this was fantastic.
So kudos to you, Ranjit, to be on this, right? So we need men like you to join the conversation, really.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome. So, great to have you all here. It was just wonderful to have this conversation. It was open. It was, it was something I hope the industry benefits from, hearing from you guys. So thank you very much for being on the panel.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day.
Happy Women's Day.
Yes.
Yes.
Happy Women's Day.